Tekking Bubble Tumble! Oh, okay. Oh, whoa, alright. Existence is not supposed to be like this! Look and check it out, I can swim. Okay. Yeah, we could do the rest of the video like this. Why the hell not? Let's just roll. Ah! Oh, I really love the videos that let me go out and buy bubbles. It's a great time. And because this is a special week, we got Avengers Endgame hitting theaters this week. We got Avengers bubbles. That's right. Each one of these bubbles are going to be in the shape of your favorite Avenger, you know, clearly. Oh, yeah, check it out. There's Captain America. There's the Hulk. Oh, there's Thor. Oh, no. Oh, no. What? They're all popping. What? They're all disappearing. Oh, no. Oh, no. Thor's okay. Oh, whew. I was worried there for a second or two, but as long as Thor's okay, I think we'll be all right. You know, Chris Hemsworth is a national treasure. All right, so SABAODY Archipelago, Bubble Country, SABAODY. It's a weird word to pronounce. I remember back when I was watching these episodes in the high school computer lab at the end of the day, you know, I saw that word and I'm like, how do you even? It's one of the more difficult words to pronounce out of all the islands the Straw Hats visits. But the SABAODY Archipelago is not in fact an island. Can you guess what the SABAODY Archipelago is? There you go, I'll give you a little while to guess. Did you get? Okay, it's the archipelago. Yes, of course. So, yeah, this is a little weird place that the Straw Hats visit. It's not really the same thing as a lot of other islands where they go to. In this case, it's a place where they get completely wrecked. So, yeah, it's not like, oh, we landed on the SABAODY Archipelago, and there's like an evil ruler of the archipelago, and we have to beat him, and we just go forward. No, the SABAODY Archipelago is actually a really cool place. I like that Oda designed it the way he did. You got this basically this whole culture built around bubbles on the island, alright? And that's the whole thing. So, basically, the SABAODY Archipelago, being an archipelago, is made up of trees. So, there's really no solid earth. So, what it is actually, we find this out later. When we first arrive at the archipelago, it's just, oh, there are these giant mangrove trees that just excrete bubbles. And you just go along with it because it's One Piece. It's just like, oh yeah, cool, they're stretchy, that's awesome. Later on, we find out they're connected to the mother tree Eve. So that's the tree that's on the ocean floor that provides sunlight and oxygen to Fishman Island so humans can live there, and you have the bubble and everything. So basically, that tree starts on the ocean floor, but stretches up and then branches out, and then the archipelago here are basically the tips of those branches. There's a few other locations, both in Paradise and the New World, where these trees exist, like the Red Port, we see them there. That's how you get to Marijois with the Bone Tree. And then we also see, or the Bondola. No, the Bone Tree is in SABAODY. That's those things you get to, you know, ride around on, those little bicycles. But the Bondola are the things that take you up to Marijois. And then New Marine Ford in the New World also has these bubbles all over the place. So they're in a very similar climate. So there's probably a few other areas like the SABAODY Archipelago where they have these mangrove trees sticking out. But the archipelago itself is probably the biggest cluster of them all at once. Alright, so you could actually even maybe consider that as the very tip of the mother tree Eve, because there's so many. So basically they work the same as regular mangrove trees, where you have the trunk of the tree, but also you have the roots that are also above sea level, and they drain, you know, the nutrients and stuff out of the ocean. But here's the difference. They're huge. They're freaking huge roots. So even though it's not solid earth, you could still basically build an entire village on just one of the roots of one of these mangrove trees, okay? And so they basically organize the island like so, by giving a designated number to each of the mangrove trees. There are 80 in total from 0 to 79, which, now that I'm actually thinking about it, we never found out what Grove 0 was. That's kind of weird, isn't it? It's like Grove 0. We saw Grove 1. That was where the auction house was. But I wonder what Grove 0 was all about. Maybe it's like Toriko with Area 0, where like there's the wellspring of all the food that's ever existed comes directly from Area 0. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's like a Wonderland and the Straw Hats just missed it. They were like, alright, well, we freed Kami from the auction house. We should probably get out of there. And Grove 0 is right next door and all this food and meat's coming out, and Luffy just never knew how good he could have had it. But yeah, that's how they organized them there. And as you can see from this map, we have Groves 0 through 29, which which are the lawless zone, so it's like the Wild West out there. As you can imagine, it's not a place that regular tourists should go. It's a place the Marines don't really have a lot of control over. A lot of thugs and bounty hunters and pirates tend to congregate there in the lawless zone, right? But also, don't think that the lawless zone is just nothing but death wasteland. I mean, some of them are. In fact, some of the areas we see are actually pretty screwed up. We see areas that are like abandoned villages and signs posted like, screw the Marines! And you also see like a dead skeleton of a Marine freaking staked to the side of the sign, and it's okay, you don't want to be there on a Friday night. But there's also like restaurants and things in the lawless zones, and like fancy restaurants too. The place where Beiji and Bonnie and Hawkins were at the first time we get to meet them, remember when Bonnie is on top of the table like, I need more pizza! And Beiji's there, and he's just like, somebody silence that woman over there. You know, and then Hawkins, you know, somebody spilled some spaghetti on one of Hawkins' members' his pants, and he's like, Captain, let me beat the crap out of him. And Hawkins is like, no, that was just the fate of your pants. So yeah, that's where we first introduced him, and that was in the lawless zone. So there's at least a few groves in the lawless area that have rather fine dining. So, I mean, hey, pirates need to eat too. There were probably a few restaurateurs on SABAODY that were just like, hey, let's set up shop in the lawless area. Isn't that kind of dangerous, sir? It'll be okay. We will be super fancy, and we will give the pirates a dining experience, the likes of which they've never seen before. So, just roll with it, right? Groves 30 to 39 are SABAODY Park, so it's an amusement park there. It's also where the Sabodome was, where Brook had his farewell tour as the Soul King, you know, and where he sang New World, his new hit single, and then the Flying Fish Riders came in out of nowhere and got him away, and he's like, yo, goodbye, my adoring fans. It's also a very significant point in Arlong's backstory, as well as Hodie's as well, because the little kids, back when they were little, you know, little minnows, would swim up to the surface, and they would witness the, you know, the amusement park there, like Arlong and Hachi and Karubi and everybody, and they wanted so much just to live on the surface when they were kids. Of course, as they got older and the whole incident with Fisher Tiger begins to warp them a little bit, so they have, you know, much more malevolent views of humanity. But Arlong Park is designed after SABAODY Amusement Park, because that's like the vaunted amusement park of their childhood. So then you have groves 40 to 49, which are like the touristy section. The SABAODY Archipelago is also kind of like Disney World in a lot of respects, because it's right in the middle between the... Hey everybody, how you doing? It's right in the middle between the New World and Paradise, so a lot of people stop there, not just pirates, but just regular tourists. The Marines are there and everything, so they have like, get you official SABAODY Archipelago banners here, get yourself a keychain, you know, and they have little pins you put on, they're like, first half of the Grand Line, and Chopper buys a little keychain, and just, yeah, so it is kind of a funny place there. There's a shopping mall, there's hotels there. The hotels are actually really cool. There are so many things you can do with the bubbles here, because the bubbles, as long as they stay within the climate zone of the archipelago, they'll basically stay consistent. And these aren't regular bubbles that you just blow and you can pop. No, they basically have the consistency of this giant ball here, so you can like jump on top of them, and you can bounce around, and you can even climb inside of them, and you can actually carry your stuff in them. There's these things called a bone bag, which I think Bone Clay, you might have to file a suit, some trademark shit against them there. The bone bag, bone cherie. I mean, Bone Clay, you got a case here. Hire a lawyer. Okay. So, yeah, you could basically hold them just like this, but when they float up high enough, or if you physically take them out of the climate zone of SABAODY, they'll pop. The bubbles can also exist as long as you're underwater, so the coating mechanics that get their jobs done at the shipyard, which is groves 50 to 59, that was a cool transition, they coat the ships there, and then you can dive down underwater, and as long as you stay underwater, you're fine. However, the second you surface, the bubble, the coating on your ship will pop. Alright, so the shipyard at SABAODY, we don't get to see it too often, but this is probably where all the marine ships are coated whenever they have to make journeys under the ocean. Okay, so that's pretty cool there too. Also, during the tourist section, Luffy was almost tricked into buying one of those bone cheries. They're basically like bicycle attachments that you stick on top of the bubbles or inside of the bubbles. You climb on in, and then you can actually fly around inside of the bubble. And a lot of tourists get tricked into buying one because they think they can take the bubbles off the island, but they can't. You can bring the device with you, but it's completely useless without a bubble, so it's probably better just to rent one. Then we have groves 60 to 69. I said 60. Oh, damn it, I screwed that joke up. No. So Grove 60 to 69 is actually the main entrance to the island. It's where the Marine base is, okay? And so because the SABAODY Archipelago used to be right next door to Marine HQ, it's no longer. It's next door to G1, so there's not as much of a Marine presence there as it used to be, but back 2 years ago, there definitely was. You have the main entrance to the island, so if there's ever a tourist or the Marines or anyone want to dock at the island, they, of course, would go to the Marine base first. And I'm sure if you're a tourist, they would probably give you a map. And he's like, welcome to SABAODY Archipelago. Make sure to check out the amusement park. We got great hotels here. Might want to stay out of the regions that are red, though, because you will probably get, you will get murdified. You stay out of those areas. And then finally, Groves 70 to 79 are the hotel district. Now, we didn't really get to see the hotel district too much. When we were in the tourist district, 40 to 49, we got to see a hotel there, and it was cool because you basically just take a bubble and then coat it with a special alloy, and then you have these little bubble hotels. So you can, like, each room is an individual bubble, and you can walk in and rest and chill out, and they can string them up on a line in between the groves. It's just stuff like that that I love Oda's imagination. You know, bubble hotels. It's so cool, right? Actually goes along with the whole capsule hotels that they have in Japan. But I just love the world building. I was like, Oda's like, all right, let's make an entire island or an archipelago, whatever, that has these bubbles that exist. All right, you could just leave it at that. You could just have like, oh yeah, you're walking around and there's bubbles anywhere. But no, these bubbles are a big part of this island's culture. People go around wearing bubble hats all the time, and they're, you know, they play a role in the tourism industry. Like, people are going to come all over the world to see these bubbles. It's pretty cool. I mean, I would go there. I mean, the sticky resin aside, because what happens is, it's kind of disgusting when you actually think about it. What happens is when the trees breathe, when they take in carbon dioxide and they breathe out oxygen, there's this sticky resin that's basically like, you know, like bubble resin that's coating all of the tree trunks and the roots. All right, so when the trees breathe, the resin becomes a bubble, just, and then it just keeps rising up until it pops, right? So because of that, though, wherever you walk around, and we even saw this, like Robin just put her hand on the ground and it just, you know, just there you go, and then you can make a bubble out of it, but that's a weird trade-off, you know. I don't know if I could deal with that place. Can you imagine walking around, your shoes would constantly be coated in this, like, jelly snot bubble goo, like, it's a great vacation. Man, can you imagine if you, like, dropped your phone or something, like, hold on, I'm gonna tweet my friend, I'm in front of Grove 47, dang it, no, it's disgusting, now it's all over my pants. You know, you got this bubble goo everywhere, so actually that's probably something else they could get tourists on. Like, get your official bubble rag removers today, and it's just a regular towel. It's just like a $10 for your official bubble remover, you know. So yeah, that's the thing with the archipelago. But hey, at the end of the day, you got bubbles, and let me ask you, that's really all that matters, right? Behold, my bubble gun. Oh, that's getting all over my monitor. Oh, God, that was not a good idea. But hey, it's okay, because bubble gun. Yeah. This is gonna be my new favorite thing. Alright, so yeah. By the way, yeah, I was making that reference earlier, like it's kind of like the Wild West and the Lawless Zone, and then right next door to the Lawless Zone, you have an amusement park. And actually, if you look at this map, the naval base actually borders the Lawless area where the human auction house is. Now, that makes sense because the world government, oh yeah, I forgot to mention the whole slavery thing. Yeah, there's, on top of the Disney World, you know, aesthetic, there's also copious amounts of slavery and human trafficking on the archipelago. Yeah, can't believe I almost forgot that. But yeah, the world government really doesn't care because the celestial dragons are cool with it, right? And that's how they get their kicks. So I guess the Marines are just told not to interfere with the auction house. In fact, we learn about this. He's like, oh, yeah, the auction house. Yeah, we kind of turn a blind eye to it, or really they just pretend it doesn't exist. In fact, I think the Marines have like a different name for it, like the totally optional Employment Bureau is the name of the human auction house. They give it a completely different name to kind of make it legit when it really isn't. But yeah, I'm sure the Marines tell people, like, yeah, stay away from these lawless areas, and they might even, like, quarter them off so random tourists aren't playing in the amusement park. Like, Daddy, I want to go on the Ferris wheel, and they accidentally wander into Area 29, and it's like, oh no, pirates! Are you part of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride? I'm like, no, we're not. You know, right? So, yeah. Now, what else about the island? Talked about the bubbles, talked about that. This isn't about what happened with the Straw Hats there. This video is strictly about geography, good sir. So we're not here to talk about how the Straw Hats got completely decimated by a giant bear human and a dude made out of light, alright? So what we can talk about, though, is Shocky's Ripoff Bar, which is located at the top of Grove 13 here. 13, unlucky number. I wonder if it's intentional. Ooh. So yeah, like I said, there's some of these groves that have nothing on them. There's some of them that have villages, and there's some of them that have, like, that make up an entire amusement park. In the case with Grove 13, it's in the lawless zone, obviously, and it only has one establishment, and that is Shocky's Ripoff Bar. So Shocky has a nice business here. She mostly caters to pirates and bounty hunters that come in to wet their whistles. She's, of course, married to Rayleigh, so he hangs out there every once in a while. He's usually out gambling somewhere. So that, I guess that implies there has to be a gambling hall somewhere on SABAODY, probably in the tourist section, I would imagine. Don't think it would be in an amusement park, you know. So yeah, that's Shocky's Bar there. We also have, well, we see a bunch of the groves throughout the course of One Piece. Like we see, I think Grove 47 was where Kizaru landed, or Grove 27, one of those. He lands there and then he destroys the entire, you know, tree with his light speed explosive kick. So that's one grove that's gone now, and those are a national landmark, Kizaru. You should feel bad about that, you know, just destroying an entire, it's like that one tree, that one redwood tree out in California. It was that cool one that had like a hole drilled through it, like you could drive through it, and that tree fell down. I felt pretty bad when that tree fell down. I'm like, man, I'm never gonna get to see that tree now. That kind of sucks. But whatever. Let's see, what else? As I'm thinking, let me blow a bubble with this weird jelly goo. You see, Dollar Tree offers some weird things you can get bubble related, alright? So, for example, you might have noticed these bubbles up here, these are just these special kind of bubbles that don't pop when you blow them, and they just kind of harden into this sticky kind of glue. So that's something. And then we have this weird stuff, and apparently if you flatten it out like this and you put it over this tube, you can like make your own little plastic bubble. I don't know. It popped. I was also in Walmart earlier today, and I found this thing called the Wubble Brite, which is basically a giant ball like this, but it's inflatable, and you can also change colors, and I didn't buy it because it was like $20, and guys, I have enough crap in my house. I mean, I don't even know what I'm going to do with this thing at the end of the day, but yeah, I didn't buy it. But I did look on the back, and I'm interested in the material it was made out of, because the Wubble Brite is apparently made with a special kind of material unseen in the rest of the world called expandium. Expandium, yeah. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the substance that Nami and Robin use to line their bras. Expandium. You see, is that, okay. Let's see. Okay, well, there's the human auction house. Okay, that was like the last thing I was gonna bring up, but, you know, I don't think there's really anything else to note on the island. Like, there's plenty of different places we saw, but most of them are just empty groves, or like the place that the Straw Hats fought against, you know, the Pacifistas, or Kizaru, or where Rayleigh helped them and everything. I think they actually arrived on the island somewhere in the 40s. They docked their ship there, and the Sunny was at one of the groves. Obviously, it was protected by Kuma, who's the PX-0 and all that. But getting to the main event, Grove numero uno, we have the human auction house, which, as the name implies, actually doesn't just auction off humans. So actually the name is kind of alive. I'm actually thinking about it. Yeah, it's false advertising, Disco. It's the place where, of course, you got a bunch of the slave trade going on there, and they would auction off giants and mermaids, and Duval, he was a member of the Flying Fish Riders, who are now the Rosy Life Riders. There's also a bunch of other like bounty hunting groups there, like the Coffee Monkeys and everything, that work on the SABAODY Archipelago. They'll basically kidnap people, just if they're like a rare species, and then, you know, sell them off to the auction house. Disco will buy them for a profit and then sell them for a predetermined price, or whoever's the highest bidder, right? Now, female mermaids cop the biggest dollar out of all of this, so when they found Kami, they kidnapped her, and then, you know, that led to the whole thing with the Straw Hats going there and trying to rescue her, right? So, yeah. Now, good news, the auction house is currently in a complete state of disrepair. We actually see it 2 years later during the cover series, Where Are They Now? And we basically just see Disco, homeless and dejected, hanging out like a hobo outside of the house. The house is collapsed. It's covered with moss. Disco probably still lives there, though, just because he's just like, I remember the good times. He's like getting drunk on really shitty alcohol, and he's, you know, takes Laws and kids and Luffy's his wanted posters and stabs them into the ground in front of him. Like, he has a grudge that will last lifetimes after what they did to ruin him. And he's just like, oh, man. And yeah, because the way that it worked was Doflamingo was actually the one financing the auction house. But he said to Disco, he basically gave it to Disco, and he's like, I don't care about that anymore. Slavery's out. Smiles are in. And we didn't know what that meant back then, but now we do. The smiles as in, you know, devil fruit, artificial devil fruit, selling to Kaido and everything. That was the new business he was in. So he just gives the house over to Disco, and Disco's like, well, thank you so much, Doflamingo. That's awesome. Realizing that, you know, Doflamingo probably figured the auction house would fail sooner or later. Just happened to be sooner in poor Disco's case, but there's the situation there. Of course, the Straw Hats not only visited this island once, but also twice. They left after, you know, Kuma separated them, and then they came back 2 years later, the return to SABAODY arc. We didn't really get to see much more of it there. That's actually where we got to see the Sabadome, where Brook was at. Most of the action in that arc took place in the tourist area. That's where, like, the fake Straw Hats were congregating, and that's where they first encountered Luffy. And the Lawless area, of course, which is where the big battle came, where, you know, Caribou and everybody got together, and they were, like, gathering to get that new crew there, and then the Pacifists show up, and then Luffy shows up, and then Sentomaru, you know, shows that it's actually not Luffy, it's Damalo Black, and that's where all that happens. And then after that, it's just a mad dash for the shore, get back to the Sunny, dive underwater, all the other people that helped out the Straw Hats in the 2 years, you know, like Weatheria, and Heraclesen is there, and they all help Luffy and the Straw Hats get away. So yeah, we don't really get to see much there. In fact, I think it was after the time skip, that's when we got to see the Marine base for the first time. I don't think we saw the Marine base at SABAODY the first time we arrived there. It was after the time skip, so it's just a pretty small Marine base, all things considered. So yeah, that's pretty much everything about the island in terms of geography. It's a really cool looking place, though. It was also the place that all the citizens of Marineford had to evacuate to during the war, and there was just an area they all got together, and on a giant monitor they were just observing what was going on. So Oda certainly likes the location. He's used it quite a bit throughout the series, more often than usually we see other islands, right? It was used during the SABAODY arc, it was used once again during Marineford, and then it was used again a third time, and of course, it's where Rayleigh still lives, so we can always cut back to SABAODY at any time and see what's going on with Rayleigh, and Shocky as well, especially since Shocky has ties to the Rocks crew, probably, so we're definitely going to probably, you know, jump back to SABAODY at some point and maybe get a look at that vaunted Grove Zero, see what that's all about there. But other than that, thanks for watching, everybody. I had certainly had a lot of fun with this video. Bubbles and, you know, squishy balls things I bought. Yeah, you want to just... Oh, yeah. Also, this had nothing to do with anything, but I also bought a Slinky. Remember Slinkies? I didn't even know they still... I'm so glad they still make these things. These are awesome. These used to be the internet. But anyway, I digress. You guys have a good night. Enjoy. Go out and buy some bubbles. I guarantee you it makes the day better. Alright, if you're having kind of a shitty day, just try it. Try it for me. If you're having a shitty day and you're at work or you're at school or something, or maybe you're out on the town or whatever, stop in at your local Dollar General or your Dollar Tree or whatever and just be like, I don't know, Matt. I don't know if this is going to help at all. Just go in, buy bubbles for $1 or a bubble gun. I think the bubble gun I got at Walmart, it was like $4. But buy the bubble gun or something and just go outside and just blow some bubbles. It might help. You don't know. Alright, have a good one, everybody. Tekking, signing out. Slinky time, I love Slinky. Super secret Slinky technique. Slinky fist. Actually, the birthplace of the Slinky is actually in my backyard. Not my literal back. Yeah, the Slinky factory is right outside my window. No, it's actually Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, and that's like a 40-minute drive. I've been there many times. When I was actually interning at the news station, we went there quite a bit to the courthouse and all that stuff. And yeah, Hollidaysburg is a good town. I'm actually trying to get a house there right now. I'm looking for places to rent in Hollidaysburg. But yeah, that's the birthplace of the Slinky.